So we have a podcast for you guys that don't listen to it. If you do listen to it, do not listen around your kids or in church or other places like that. So, I've been doing this my whole adult life. I got hired at the City of Orlando Fire Department like a week before my 18th birthday. And one of the youngest paramedics in the state at the time, me and a buddy of mine. And I was pretty fortunate to get to work where I wanted to work at. And I also, after 13 years of working other places, got to work at my dream place where I fell in love with being a flight person and, flight paramedic, flight nurse. And it's Orlando Health and Orlando Air Care. And I've been working there for, I think, I've just kind of hit the 10-year mark. At that hospital, Orlando Health was always the place I wanted to work at Air Care. That's the first place I saw some dude get out of a helicopter with glorious chest hair. They do some awesome stuff. I'm still trying to grow the chest hair. However, it was a dream come true the day I got to step in there. In the journey to do that, I always tell people experience is what you get when you didn't get what you want. Makes sense? And it took me, like I said, 15 years of working other places to get to that place. And hey, it was worth it. The day I got to be there, it's like the realization of a dream. And if anything that I can say about our company, that's what we try to do. We try to make it where people can make things possible that want to work in this industry. Sometimes it'll look like the picture person. We'll talk about that in a little bit. What does a flight nurse, flight paramedic, search and rescue tech look like? If you can point that, let me know, point that out so make it easier on what we're trying to do. The biggest thing, we put some pictures up here for you and stuff, is that I've been a member of a lot of teams. I've played semi-pro football the whole time I've been a firefighter, paramedic, and nurse. And a few years ago, I started trying to play hockey, which I was telling that story yesterday. I thought I would show up and be the goalie because it didn't look like they were doing a whole bunch of skating. And it didn't look like they moved around a lot. That was wrong. There's a bunch of people in a bunch of different ventures that we've tried as a rescue company. Some of them have worked, some of them have not. Here's an example of one. Get back to the slide here.
On my way into work, I spilled hot coffee on my lap, and I lost control of my car. Then I bought a car with the trunk monkey. The trunk monkey.
We thought it would work. That's funny. It's I don't care who you are right there. So the last thing I will say about myself before we start talking about this awesome and amazing team is this, that I'm from Queens, New York. So odds are that I will say fuck throughout this presentation. I apologize for that. Also, we're very honest people, but we're not the most polished people at times, and we express our opinions, and sometimes ways that some people, things don't want to hear. Not everybody's baby is pretty. Sometimes you got another debate, but we are honest in the sense that hey, we always try to do the best we can for people. We try to tell the truth, and that's kind of our model throughout the company. We are accredited by different places, and different things allow us to give CE credits and make policy. We're insured to make policy. We can do a lot of different stuff, and it's as we've progressed through these different steps, I've learned a lot about why something says something on a piece of paper, and everybody takes it as a rule and law, and in reality, it was just somebody's opinion somebody wrote down. And that's probably not the best way to do something. And we'll show you some of these examples today. I talked about this guy here already. So some people to think that we wouldn't be here without. So I do have probably the most amazing medical director that you could have for our company, and he is, awesome. He's got great hair, but he's a pretty experienced, and he just been deployed a bunch of places, a lot of disaster rescue experience. Sometimes we have to convince people that he is an actual doctor, and but everything that we do in the company, everybody does, with few exceptions. And Dr. Abel insists on being at every training that we do, and he insists on training just like we do. And you'll see that could be really bad at times. So, because sometimes the doc gets himself in some trouble. It's a funny video of him right here. So we went actually and did like 10-10 helicopter deployments into the water, and the doc did like a 20-10. So it's pretty cool. But here he is. Pretty awesome. And then I have to thank my wife. Like, she takes a lot of the beatings for everybody. She's back there in the corner. So I had to say nice things about her. So if you went back to the first picture where we had all those pictures in the background of that's my best friend. That's my best friend in the whole entire world. And we worked at the fire department together. And we always say we had either the fortune or the misfortune, because I say the fortune of, lucky to be there, because after that whole ordeal, all the bad things that happened there, I ended up with 13 really good friends from that. But Josh Renata is my best friend. He was my partner on the day of that Pulse nightclub shooting, and we were the first two paramedics on the scene. And a lot of the stuff from that night brought up a lot of the stuff of how he grew up and some of the bad things, and his ability to even leave home is pretty bad. So at some point, imagine having to tell your best friend that you started this thing with, that was everywhere with me, everywhere I go, that he couldn't work here anymore. And luckily, in a very limited role, he has kind of resurfaced, and we let him, he's back to doing certain things. But it's hard to even say without crying, because, as my wife can tell you, there was a lot of stuff Josh did for me, and there's a lot of stuff that we did together. And I was pretty lucky with Trish that she took over a lot of those roles. And I have to say thank you, and I love you. No. So what are we doing? So a few years ago, me and Josh went to a conference, and we're sitting there, and we saw a lecture about like civilian people being thrown into space. And then one of the things that the person talked about was that civilians are going to have to rescue the civilians, because at some point the military only supports so much of it. So when we're sitting there in that lecture, we're like, hey, maybe we can teach the medicine part of what those rescue guys are doing. And we embarked on a serious, crazy road from there. While I was doing that, the one of the companies that we use to like help us make sure that we keep our water egress, like putting people in the water and a lot of our safety stuff, basically said, hey, like, how do we certify the diver and rescue person that's in the water? And how do we certify that person that's in there? And we couldn't find anything other than what the oil and petroleum people do. Had those people come over. And since we don't do the same type of business that they do, they couldn't really give us that certification. So we went to Homeland Security. Homeland Security basically says, hey, write something up, put it through a couple different things, and we're going to give you the accreditation to do that. And you would think that's pretty easy. It's not. So research. So about 3 or 5, 6 months later, I came up with this paper, which was this helicopter search and rescue person for training. And it ended up being this thing you're about to actually see. So while doing that, we thought of something. We're like, hey, after doing all this research, again, you're going to see it here in a second. There's nothing that's really accessible as of right now in our coast, off our coastline. And also, there's like opportunity to actually have this search and rescue team that's a 501c3 non-for-profit that's available for like fishermen and disaster reliefs and all kinds of stuff, because sometimes those people don't have the access to it. And we said, hey, let's try. So this is what it's kind of about.
I'm Tavarez, CEO of the rescue company. So all you need for this first evolution is for snorkel, and then we're out there with a spiral snorkel. The short-term goal right now is to get as many people as we can through the program to be operational. Is that true? That's true for everybody, right? Okay. So one's on this side of the pool, 2 on the other side of the pool. The long-term goal is to have a range of what we do, the deployable asset to the state, nationally, to do helicopter search and rescue. Helicopter search and rescue is pretty limited. It's a 1% is done by civilians, 99% is done by the military. We're ready? Yes, sir. Okay. Jay, watching. Yes.
So this is the cover it, clear it.
One of the things.
Andy is so handsome. Even I love looking at him.
The critical care transport aspect into it. One of the things we're going to do is be pretty innovative. We're going to bring that high level FPC, CMRN type knowledge with the survival knowledge and the helicopter search and rescue knowledge, all the rescue swimming that's involved in that, the road work, the technical rescue, heavy lifting, treating, braking. I can only treat one person at a time. Because I teach somebody how to do it, and I teach that person to also teach somebody else how to do it. But we're treating a lot of people, we're rescuing a lot of people, I think it makes a difference. We're trying to formalize a like 501c3 that ends up being some type of what they call heart teams, which are aquatic rescue teams. These teams kind of came to fruition right after like Hurricane Katrina. There's about 5 heart teams in the U.S.
There's more. Wrong number.
I think it's pretty crazy because we get a lot of hurricanes here, and if not, we get our neighbors get a lot of hurricanes, so it makes us pretty easy to deploy the asset. We have about every other type of FEMA asset in Florida as far as like search and rescue teams and boat teams and stuff like that. So as far as the HART program, I'm pretty passionate about helicopter medicine, helicopter rescue, and I think that our goal is to develop that here. In the long term, we want to have some lasting legacy of like a place that people go where they can perform search and rescue. That's a paid job or some type of on-call volunteer, response for the greater good type, helicopter, or an actual this pays you. We don't know. The sky's the limit with it. So the fact that we've got this far along with what we do is pretty awesome. I never thought we'd be here. I never conceived that the program where it was going to go.
So when I get hired at the city of Orlando, I lived in my car. It's the only thing I actually owned, and I was homeless. And like getting that job, I remember getting paid for like the first time, and like being able to put a down payment on something to like be able to live in, and then like I lived like a homeless man inside of an apartment for a long time. I had a hammock, and you get paid for the first time. I had a giant TV, and then like. Bear this in mind, and I tell you this for this reason. Everything you see that the rescue company one does, all the stuff, the bills that get paid, the equipment that gets bought, is bought from my pocket. It's bought from my pocket. I have to tell that woman over there a lot of times, no, I'm going like on a vacation or going to stuff, or like, hey, you probably need to pick up a couple extra hours. We got some bills to pay. You know what I'm saying? Like we have to, like I have to, and she can tell you that's the absolute truth. And the people that are left here on the team are pretty amazing because they're all old students, like people that would just hang around. They would come work for free, and then we eventually just kind of gave them jobs. So like all these guys, you meet them throughout this presentation, are amazing. The just to be on the same point, we basically want to be able to do all this technical rescue stuff and still do the same high level medicine that we perform. There's a book that talks about the Hurricane Katrina victims, and at this hospital where people were ICU patients, that in the middle of that storm, they couldn't be moved. What was that? Mercy. You read that book, and that's the only thing as I was developing this concept that I kept thinking was, if that ICU nurse that high level provider that's there when it isn't bad weather, or is there not before the disaster. If we can get that person there while things are flooded and things are bad, and we're able to move a balloon pump patient because you can hoist this thing down, bring the patient back up. It sounds crazy, I know, but what if you could do that? That's the question we had when we started this thing. So this is why. So let's look at current SAR things. Some of these slides are pretty wordy. Anybody's been through a class with me knows I can't read slides. So I may be on the slide or not. So current SAR and what we kind of do. So if I was to ask a couple people in this room, prior to clicking on this picture, who will become, let's say you're sick on a boat, who's coming to get you? Coast Guard. Cool. And they do. They're out there. How many of those guys do you think there are? So there is more people on the New York City Fire Department than they are in the United States Coast Guard. There's more NYPD than there are people in the United States Coast Guard. Now, these guys that do this, they're like the top 1% physically, mentally good decision makers, these pilots and these swimmers. So now you take that small group and you even make it a smaller group. Does that make sense? What do you think the primary function of these helicopters are on the Coast Guard? They work for the Department of Homeland Security. So their main function is protecting us from bad people. Does that make sense? So they have to combine that mission with search and rescue. And they're busy people. Does that make sense? As you know, kind of, we won't watch the whole thing.
Bravery, decision making. These aspects drive the aviation survival technician specialty in the United States Coast Guard. As an aviation survival technician, you will dive into many challenging scenarios, ranging from hurricanes and cliff rescues.
Listen to this job description.
Medical evacuations from ships at sea. The journey to becoming an aviation survival technician begins with a 6-month course in Elizabeth City, North Carolina, covering helicopter rescue swimmer procedures and aviation life support equipment fundamentals. Advanced courses cover emergency medical technician, advanced helicopter rescue, operational fitness training, and survival instructor rescue courses.
So basically, you got to learn how to teach people how to do survival when you're not busy. You got to know how you can do helicopter stuff, EMT, all kinds of different things. They basically are people that don't ever say no. They're like, hey, we need y'all to go do this. Okay. We need you to learn how to do this. Okay. And eventually you become pretty tasked, and there's only so many of you. So where does search and rescue come from and a lot of the things? And again, pretty worried. There was a convention in 1979. They kind of internationally wrote, I guess, if for lack of better terms, the protocols, the suggestions of how you should run search and rescue in the maritime world, aviation world, and in the inland world. And they actually came up with a lot of good things. If you're wondering how big this document is like 1,100 and some odd pages. So just words, no pictures. I'm a fireman. I need pictures. And it's pretty bad. So, and they basically kind of coordinate for the stress and victims, again, water, land, air stuff. The search and rescue Bibles, what I use to research and come up with a lot of the stuff that needed to be in the class. These are these guys right here. Again, throughout this presentation, we'll see Coast Guard, Coast Guard, Coast Guard, and you'll see why that is here in a second. But that's what one of these things look like right here. The Annex 12 is the actual document that came out of that conference that we talked about. And then pretty much everything else you kind of see is an addendum to that annex. So that's why you hear them called addendums, stuff like that. So the female search and rescue guide is a thing that we use on their Homeland Security FEMA teams for urban deployments. And then these NFPA things are kind of like the suggestions or what you should have for a tech person to be called a tech, and also for a program to be called a tech, and for a program to be deployable to be a tech. The books that we use just to condense, because you can imagine if you look up for a rope rescue, technical rescue book, they are a bunch of them. But we basically took this document by the Department of Interior, and that's kind of the book that we use. So we build a sea rig, like that book tells us to do that. Mechanical advantages, like that book. We search like that book tells us. Then the National Association of Search and Rescue Academy, I may have messed that term up, but they came up with a helicopter rescue techniques book. So a helicopter tech book, and that's kind of where we get some of the other stuff from. And like I said, a bunch of different other documents. The general rule of aviation 3.6 that covers search and rescue, they actually talk about basically who should be available. And remember, the search and rescue stuff's for everybody. So in international waters, in international other countries, if you're not performing a task in your current area. Does that make sense? So if you're sick in international waters, they're going to try to get the closest neighboring person that can legally respond to that area. Make sense? So this is like the members of the National Search and Rescue and obviously the Department of Homeland Security is the chairperson, which is the United States Coast Guard. So they are tasked with finding numbers and like seeing, hey, are we doing the right things? And then changing policy thereon and so forth. NASA is part of this as well. NASA does a lot of research and development. They do a lot of like going out and finding, hey, does the current rescue techniques work out there? So a lot of people think it's just the astronaut things, but they actually bring a lot of stuff to the regular search and rescue world. Besides that, the Air Force is kind of tasked with receiving calls, disseminating calls, so on and so forth. This is how calls come in. So to the Search and Rescue Coordination Center, again, which is run by the Air Force at Tyndall Air Force Base. So different ways that it'll get there. And then I want to just draw your attention to that second to last box. Ask, not task. Make sense? A lot of times you just got to ask, hey, is somebody available to go? Does that make sense? That person, that system, whatever that, and again, it's not just helicopters here. We're talking about all search and rescue and maritime stuff. They're going to ask, hey, are you guys available to go? And they may or may not be in that situation. Per region in the United States, when you go from county to county, state to state, who's usually tasked with search and rescue in that area? Anyway. Well, the state is responsible for it, right? And then the governor kind of disseminates that responsibility for locations to the sheriffs, right? The sheriff is usually in charge. And like they're usually per region, like the people that are going to respond to the search and rescue. But how many search and rescue teams are full time? There ain't a whole bunch of them out there. So you would have to call, get people in, and that adds to the time frame that of the response itself. Again, this is how calls will come in. The time from like getting the call to responding, the theory is we want to be there in 20 to 30 minutes. But just because of all the different things I just explained, sometimes that time gets longer and longer. And we'll see. So I was able to get some information from the nice people at Tyndall Air Force Base. The only thing is, couldn't use the years because of like the people that do survive, medical record stuff. And so they want me to use the years, but they let me use this period of, you see how many days that is in July at a certain year. So 193 calls came into that center for a variety of reasons. 28 of them were accepted. Okay, 28 of them were accepted. Now, if you think of, let's separate it just for the simplicity of conversation. And let's say anything that's military, government run, like federally run, we're going to call that federal resources. Everybody with me so far? Okay. And anything that's not that, it's local resources or volunteer services or Good Samaritans. Keep that in mind. Okay. So 193 calls, 28 of them were accepted. 14 people found alive. Now that saves, or the people that are found alive, I had to find that definition where those numbers kind of came from. And there's a bunch of different definitions out there for each one of the books that I showed you. The biggest thing is if they're found basically with a pulse, breathing and stuff, they're considered alive. As you read through the research though, at 3 days after those people were found alive, you net 50% of that 14. So 7 people lived past those incidents. And that's where our journey started with this stuff. Why is that happening? And why is that? Well, a number of things happen during the dispatching. A number of things happen where the people that find these 14s, I'll show you this thing right here, 10% of them are done by federal resources. The other 90% are found by just a fishing boat, finds the person that's calling that. A good Samaritan runs into that trail where that person is lost. And we're going to show you a bunch of articles and different stuff that happened from this year. So that person doesn't really have any medical training at all. And if they do, medical training is very basic. But let me ask you something. If you're a trained EMT, but you have no EMT gear with you, what can you do? See where I'm getting at? So, like, if the person, the Good Samaritan that is trained runs into them, it's very minimal what they can do if they have no equipment to be there. If you're sick on a boat, right, you get burned on a boat. If you're a merchant ship person or on a cruise ship and stuff like that, something happens to you. Who's coming to provide you? You're having a heart attack there. Who's treating you? Cruise ships, you got doctors. We'll talk about those guys. But if you're just on a regular merchant ship, moving crates around, they're the trucks, the 16-wheelers of the sea, right? Who's treating those people? There's no medical personnel on there. So a lot of times they're doing telemedicine, calling somebody, trying to figure out how to do, and diverting a ship. Does anybody know the cost of that? So like on the high end, $6 million. On the low end, $1 million. And you know what that cost, who that cost goes to? The people shipping this stuff. The owners of most of these ships don't have any responsibility whether the stuff gets there or not. That's not their problem. They were moving it, something happened, it happened. So now you got to get your stuff out of somewhere else. And if you're a person running a business, shipping things in, that cost adds up to you too. Does that make sense? So you got to think of those situations right there. Here's some of the documents. Again, I'm not going to read through a whole bunch of them, but here, I'm going to leave this thing up for you for a second and kind of explain what they're talking about in this article. And if you want any of these slides and all the references stuff, we'll send them to you. You'll have my email here at the end. Let me know, and I'll send you what you want. And you look at this. Basically, this comes out of 6 different cases. 6 cases where people didn't leave from Florida, never visited Florida on those ships, but something bad happened to them on those cruise ships. And basically, they had no recourse. They couldn't sue anybody, right? They basically, for years and years, the cruise ship industry was, they were free of any guilt, of any problems or anything. They could provide whatever care they wanted. So the state of Florida said, hey, if something happened to you and you're a U.S. citizen, you can come to Florida and file your case against that cruise ship line. And that got upheld at several different courts. And now, since 2004, the cruise ships had to fix their different situations that we're doing on that. The American College of Emergency Physicians, one of the coolest things that I think we get to do as the Rescue Company One is that our home office and our home place where we do all our teaching when we're in Orlando is at the College of the American College of Emergency Physicians. And we get to kind of be at this really cool place with a museum and stuff and like run our company from there. And they provided a position paper on it. If you're a doctor on a cruise ship, if you're on a cruise ship, the facilities, the training should meet these several bullet points there. Assisting to some type of evacuation in a timely manner, that is the big problem in this thing. So let's talk about this scenario here. Let's pick on Leah because I like to. So Leah, you are a nurse on a cruise ship, and you have every bit of everything available to you, EKGs, medicines, all that stuff, just like you would on your helicopter, just like you would in your emergency room, and just like you would in the ambulance, right? Okay. So the big problem with all those things is that if we're in an ER and you're having a cardiac condition, where does that patient go? Go to a cath lab somewhere, right? Go to, upstairs if you're at a place that has a cath lab, right? You're in the ambulance, you're going to a destination. You're in the helicopter, you're going to a destination, right? You're on a big giant city that's traveling to a destination. Does that make sense? You're out in the middle of the ocean, international waters, guys having an inferior wall in mind. Right? Inferior wall in mind. This guy's a carpenter. He owns his own company. His wife's name is Lisa. It's hypothetical, but I gotta give people names. You know, and like she's a really nice lady, goes to church on Sundays. She had like, you know, a job that nobody talks about. Some people think she was a hooker, you know, we don't know. So before she got married. So now she's a nice lady, they live together, they're on a cruise ship. This guy's having a heart attack. Okay? And what are you gonna do? You treated him. Okay, you don't have to tell me medicine's here, but if you get that guy nitro, we're gonna talk about it. I'm just kidding. So, anyways, Leah's one of my students, and I was messing with her man in class. She gets all nervous when this. So, but Leah, does that person need to go somewhere?
Yeah, they need to get off that boat.
They need to go to that boat. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. They need to get off that boat and go where?
The closest PCI possible.
Okay. Sure.
Whatever country they're floating to. Closest
Cool.
country.
We can divert the boat, right? You would think. What is the cost of that? Well, I told you, low end $1 million, high end could be. So they're going to weigh out the cost of turning that boat to the closest port. Again, I don't work for these people. I'm going to tell you the truth. The research that we found. We divert this boat to the closest port. It's going to cost us this much. We don't do anything. If this person dies and we settle the case, we're going to give them this much. We pay for some type of rescue situation, if it existed in that area, and it may cost us this much. Which decision do you think they go? The cheapest price. What is the cheapest price? And this man is a carpenter, wife works at a flower shop, is going to be? He's going to die. They're going to settle this case. Train up. Guess what? That woman still doesn't have her husband. Make sense? That woman still doesn't have her husband. And sometimes, I'm married to some people that would rather take the money. Okay? I don't know what your situation is, but let's just say that her situation is she loves this man. He got her out of the whorehouse that he found her at and all this stuff we talked about. You know what I mean? So I don't want to get in those people's business. But she just lost her husband. And there's no amount of money that's going to make her happy. Does that make sense? That's what we're talking about here. So get this. There's actually a thing in that algorithm that I found, the picture of that algorithm in here, because I did get a very nice letter to not put that anywhere. And there's a thing that talks about in there is that 40% of those people don't have the money to get an attorney. So guess what? They never have to even settle this case. They may never pay anything. So just something to think about. Oops. And again, the articles go on and on and on. How many people die on cruise ships? There's a number like 200 right here. This actually was not a truthful number. This is basically just a few really honest cruise lines, like those Norwegian cruise line people, those river people, reporting how many people left and how many people came back with a pulse. We don't know what happened, or a head count. So a lot of these numbers weren't really jiving with people. So they actually took Bowling Green University, and then these guys actually went out and studied and found some numbers. Again, some people are just not going to report. Okay, so you're looking out of this whole thing, are 623 responded deaths, and they actually broke them down into passengers and crews. And it looks like suicides, murders, falls, people falling overboard, pretty common with the crews and stuff, and then other medical conditions were there. Cruise ships, look at that bottom line there. Pretty interesting, right? It's insane how many accidents actually happen, how many ships actually sink, and how many of this stuff fires they have on there. You'll see a pretty cool article here. But again, different numbers there. 55 ships sank between 1979 2013, 15 from 2010 to 2013. And that's where the whole thing is. This is after data change. We're suing you now. You better get better at this. And there's still more and more accidents. Well, we got started building more and more cruise ships, more accessible to other people, and more people are cruising. So again, Coast Guard numbers, they really did some pretty cool research up to that 2004 timeline. So after that 2004 timeline, if you try to find numbers, there's some numbers that just aren't in their report. I will say undetermined or redacted for whatever reason. So it's hard for us to find anything research-wise after that point in period of time for that. The other thing is that people's attention, homeland security issues, makes it where they have other things they have to do versus just kind of just researching these numbers. So some years went unreported. So there's like 2006, there is no numbers that are accessible to the public that you could actually find. I've put in requests and done other things, but some of these things do not exist to me physically right now. Again, bunch of numbers here, 137 boating accidents. The majority of deaths were as a result of vessel collisions. Guess what? Where most of these happen? Florida, right? Yes. Look at the time, the hours where it usually happen. That's maybe the next slide. But usually people are drunk. There's a whole lot of watch this, and there's a whole lot of people that have money and have never trained to drive a boat. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people who think they can captain their own boat. They get big giant boats. They get things that are just way out of their control, and they think, hey, we can drive this. I'm from New Jersey. I know I picked from New Jersey because my doctor's from New Jersey. So like, you know, and like, you don't even live around the water, man. I'll get in a boat, and then they go out and crash their big giant boat and kill other people. Most of the people don't wear life preservers. It's teaching water survival, which is kind of like our bread and butter of a lot of the stuff we do here at the Rescue Company One. Like, you're amazed how many flight crews fly without, who's flying currently? Yeah, a bunch of people. Ma'am, if you don't mind, where do you fly at?
Stanford. Oh, right.
Yes,
Stanford.
Stanford. And you guys fly over a bunch of water there? Or
Yeah, the bay, Monterey Bay.
do you guys wear PFDs? Yeah, yeah, good, because you're on YouTube right now, so you won't be honest. Just kidding. So you guys wear your PFDs. Who flies over a bunch of water? You wear your PFD? Do you see people not wear their PFD?
We will wear them. I make my car.
Okay, good. You
We
guys.
go out to islands on the coast.
Yeah. So, man, a bunch of good people in this class. Listen, we go all over the country. We went to San Diego to teach a few months ago. We travel everywhere. We've been to Michigan in October to go teach water egress class. That's a whole different story, you know, because there's one pool open in Flint, Michigan, you know, in the wintertime. So how many people don't know how to put their PFD on? How many people don't wear it? How many people wear it inappropriately? And for the two people that I was just asked, have you ever inflated a PFD? You have? Cool. Where did you do that at?
At Stanford.
Stanford?
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome training. Have you?
Yeah, Groton, Connecticut.
Yep. Survival systems.
It's, you know, I mean, it's important to say, you know, where, you know, it's 100 degrees out, you're wearing a flight suit, it's like a plastic bag, the last thing you want to do is put your feet.
Absolutely.
You hate to go in the water without it.
Absolutely. You won't have any time if you don't have it on. We all know, people here, is that if you get in an accident in a helicopter, you have what you have to survive is what you have what? On you. You ain't reaching for a bag that we keep strapped behind a seat. You ain't reaching in that clamshell for that first aid kit in the flare. If you don't have it on you, you don't have it on you. And you ain't gonna have it. And a lot of people conceive a lot of things that they're actually gonna do during the survival time. And then, you know what? I seen you. I got videos. I seen it. That's what we say around the company here, right? We got GoPro videos on you. I have hundreds upon hundreds of hours of what people think they could do and what they actually don't do when they are holding their breath. And if you don't plan for the worst case scenario, well, hell, worst case scenario could happen to you. I always tell people this, that, and this statistic, you can call it what you want, but it's real. Right when I went to, here in the state of Florida, we have to take this air medical class. This class is a certificate of 40 hours that you need to fly. And in my class was 12 people. And between 2008 and 2010, there's only 2 of us left from that class. So what I can tell you is I've lost a whole lot of friends. I've been to a whole bunch of funerals that do this job. Does that make sense? So, call it what you want. Everybody with me so far? But even people on regular boats, if you can't get put on their stuff right, you're not going to get civilians who got PBRs in their hands to do the same thing. Okay, so here's the thing: alcohol. How many people didn't actually have their PFD? But from this slide to the next few slides, you're going to see a lot of dollar signs here, because I did find that a lot of things that lead to changes have to do with money. Does that make sense? So about 39 million of damages in 2014. Get to some of this stuff here, and again, we're going to send you this. This is pretty interesting article. One of the biggest things that I noticed was this burn article. Now I could probably fill 80 slides with different articles from around the world with maritime medicine stuff, and it's pretty interesting. But the one thing that I saw repeatedly was how burns are treated on ships. And versus it is completely led by the amount of money that would take to get this person evacuated from there. Does that make sense? So just keep that in mind as we progress through the program. Again, Europe, they're actually criminalizing search and rescue missions. They do inappropriate stuff and what the money cost is to that. So that's in Europe. The Europeans, search and rescue system is top. They do stuff over there for the public that is unbelievable. They have full-time teams that do these things, and it's all led by, again, the money. So all that research, I kind of could break it down to this one slide here so far. So 6% of all requests activated, 10% are all done by federal resources. So 90% are civilians or good Samaritans. 1 to 3 have advanced life support at the scene when they find the person. The average response time, 46 hours, and 50% of the people are found alive, die. So again, you're going to net half of the people with a pulse that you find. Now, as you read these researches, there's different things. You find people that, they would have died. Who knows? Could have been a difference? Is having ALS the difference thing there? And those are our current research, and the current stuff that I'm doing right now is based on that. Is if we have the advanced life support on the scene, will that make a difference? That's all we're trying to find out. The United States, if we talk about maritime stuff, they don't want to make it just about that. But check this out. This is an article you can look at. It's called Dead Man Walking, the Search and Rescue in the U.S. and the national parks. And let me tell you, there's about 16 different articles of this type of nature that I found there. But I highlighted this 2,659 fatalities. Look at the disparity in those numbers, though. Did those make sense to anybody? By just reading those? Well, if you look into where these numbers came from, they're pretty interesting. So, like, you got the numbers are in the 50,000s. They're only basically recognize it as a fatality if your body is found. If they find the body, you died. They don't find your body, you missing. There's a play on words, right? So, again, the injured and sick that are found, 13,212. Is that right? Right, Leah? Divide that in half. Which 50% of these people are going to do what? Die within 3 days of being found. So we came up, let's try to do a class. How do we come up with this class? And again, you'll see a bunch of stuff. I promise I won't read it to you. I've even substituted the videos of doing things instead of explaining it. So here's this. Not fucking easy. Man, how do you do a class? There's a lot of things to say what you should have if you do a class, but you got to take all these different disciplines and put them into one thing. And how do you get busy, experienced people, because that's what you need for this, to come take the class? That was a challenge. So let's talk about that. So we did a job analysis. We went out, we visited places, we talked to certain people. And I have to go visit a really cool group of people that I talked to, friendliest human beings on the face of the earth, which is the United States Customs Service, Arizona, Texas. And I'm serious. I swear to God, I'm not trying to make fun of their. These guys are awesome. And they love to talk about what they do because nobody knows that there's this full-time search and rescue paramedic guy flying on a helicopter or driving in a truck in the middle of the desert, performing these high-level skills, search and rescue things, responding to flash floods. And guess what? Most of these people are not Americans. They're going out and rescuing people that aren't even citizens. People are trying to come into the country illegally. These police officers are going out there and risking their lives, diving, doing all this stuff to find somebody. They'll even go as far as to try to find the body, and they'll respectfully put it in a coffin box type thing, and they'll ship it back to the family. They will go throughout investigating who this person is and try to find the family of this thing. And that's pretty awesome. And, you know, a lot of people don't even know these guys exist. But here's some of the places we looked at, some of these places we visited. I did talk, physically interview, and spend some time talking to people that do these different jobs. So we talked about the rescue swimmer person quite a bit, but we'll show you some other stuff here. So again, everything that they do when they train for is to be able to survive underwater. In the water for about 30 minutes. Okay, so a lot of the stuff you see these guys do, can you get beat up in the water for 30 minutes and still function? They are trained to an EMT level. Okay, and again, you saw their school's about 6 months. The Aviation Rescue Swimmer of the United States Navy found many different variations of this, and I'm going to show you the differences that these guys do here. So the first two that I found was his Naval Air Crewman helicopter person. That's basically somebody on a Navy helicopter that has a different job on the helicopter, that part of his job is being a rescue swimmer. Make sense? Okay. And then the other person has another type of, again, tactical operational job on the helicopter, and ancillary duty is being a swimmer. Here's different stuff that these guys do. Logistic. So they do a whole different job for the Navy, and they get paid extra to do this job. Same thing for the other gentleman there. Again, same basically 6 month type school that these guys go to. They go the A school for technical school. Basically, it could be where they learn how to do what their regular job is. And then they actually go to their swimmer school. And again, they're EMT trained people. Okay. Then we found these guys right here. These guys are pretty cool. They have some of these guys in the Keys of Florida. They have some of these guys out west, like Washington State area. And these guys are actually your regular helicopter, nationally registered, paramedic, FPC, with all the rescue swimming capabilities, as well as like high angle rescue, tech rescue stuff, so on and so forth, which we'll get into it. And these guys go through a lot of training. Here's their kind of like training pipeline, and, you know, kind of the stuff they go through. And the craziest thing is that the United States Army and the United States Navy, for these medevac units, made it like mandatory to have a FPC. So where I got to like meet some of these guys is that we get a lot of the people that are on their last attempt or so to pass their boards. So we do a couple of units out of Kentucky. We have a unit out of Florida that we missed, that we talk with. And then we've got a sprinkle of these Navy guys come through. And I didn't even know this even existed. So we get them through their FPC exam. And I like to say, we're pretty successful at that thing right now, because out of all the military guys that would come through, there's 34 of them that we've helped out. All 34 have passed after coming over. So a lot of this to do with our guys that teach here. So these guys are awesome. So we do work pretty close in hand. And you'll see where here with these guys out at the coast, because we use them to help us train quite a bit. So these are pararescue guys. The Canadian version of this is pretty almost to the dot similar. Same schools, almost 2 years of schooling these guys kind of go through and training. And you'll see what that looks like here in a second. The difference between the Canadian guys, which is the United States guys, is the Canadian guys are full-time search and rescue guys, really responding to civilian stuff. Our guys do the civilian stuff, but they're also combat search and rescue guys, so they get deployed to war zones and stuff like that. So here's they do skydiving, they do all the paramedic course, and then these guys are not. Some of them are FPCs, some of them are not. Most of them are not. Then these are the coolest, absolute baddest ass individuals jobs in the civilian world right now. There's 16 of these people. So there's 8 nurses, 8 paramedics that get to do this job every day. So they're regular flight nurses, flight paramedics that respond to interfacility calls, balloon pumps, Hellas, all this high speed stuff. But they also get to do all the high speed rescue stuff, hoist work. They got this is an old picture, but it's a pretty cool picture because it's like 4 females in there. And I've used this picture in a presentation that I did. It's 4 females kind of showing different stuff that they kind of, different suits that they would wear for different things. And if you were to like draw what a search and rescue person looks like, I would say most people would not pick these 4 out of the lineup. Just saying that, right? And you'll see why I say that, because it's interesting as hell what you're about to see. But kind of talks about their stuff that have all this experience if you're the flight nurse or the flight paramedic, and then have to go through this, training course. I know it's pretty small there, but they have to swim usually somewhere on a 500 or so under like this 8 to 10 minute time frame, and swift water rescue training, and they do a lot of their training in-house. And then the last little job analysis thing that I went through, because I know I'm boring the heck out of some of you guys here, was the actual like hard teams and the FEMA search and rescue stuff. And like what a helicopter search and rescue technician is for FEMA is right out of that NFPA definition. So what the NFPA says is really what you find in this document. And like, again, draw your attention to the insert them into swift water, fast moving, slow flood water, the hoist work of it. They're trained to a basic life support status. So it's an EMT job, basically. And then when you look up under the FEMA thing, I had to actually put a picture of the actual document there on their education. Not specified. What training does this person need to have? There's suggestions, but where are they actually certified from? We put this thing here, kind of shows you that what a rotor search and rescue team under that FEMA description, again, BLS care to transport to ALS care. All right. So what we're trying to do by putting this program together, we're trying at the same time as we started to search if people be interested in taking this, you get some nasty phone calls from people. People call you and they go, hey, why the fuck are you doing this class? And where the hell am I going to work? As a matter of fact, it was interesting as hell to me because the first few times I posted that our social media people posted stuff, they went on the website and everything like that, there was no price. I didn't post a price. Some people, they read through it, they got offended, they would call, and then at the end of the day, he goes, how much are you ripping people off for? And I remember this phone call, people. I said, hey, brother, this class is free. I'm not charging you $1 to come through. I'm trying to figure out, can we do this? And whoever comes through this, I'm not going to take your money for my experiment. Does that make sense? I'm not going to experiment with your money. I'm putting my own money, and I'm going to put you through class for free. So just all you got to do is show up. And like, you don't know how many people change their mind about things. All of a sudden, I was a cool guy. They want to come to my class. So, we're trying to make sure, can you do all these high-speed things? All the medicine with great muscle memory. Now, there's great test takers in the world. You guys agree? Raise your hand if you know one of these people. Got a whole bunch of acronyms right after their name. But, man, they can't draw medicine out of a bottle. You know what I'm saying? They can't zero a line. They can tell you everything you know about it. I had a guy that we gave him 6 STEMI EKGs. He could tell me about filters on a monitor, the speed that fucking thing went by, but he couldn't recognize the STEMIs. He didn't know what to do with them. So can we do all that medicine? And then can we do all this survival stuff? Can we go through hell to get to the patient and then perform that high-speed medicine? That's what we're trying to get. So we need an athlete that can do that. So I'm the guy running the class. I've got to do all the same shit that I'm about to tell people to do. So I find one of my best friends. Remember, this time I don't. So the coolest thing about Josh Granada that I can tell you is, Josh never flew in a helicopter, never ever saw the inside of one, and 3 times in our adult time, Josh has been the top flight paramedic in the world. We would go to that AMTC competition and beat the hell out of doctors and all these high-speed people. We got robbed by a bunch of Canadians a couple times. They know who they are. But that dude only knew what I would teach him. And the coolest thing about him was like, I would go, hey, Josh, let's go teach water egress. What's that about? I'll tell you on the drive. And like, he would go, okay, you get in there. I don't have that guy anymore. At this point, I'm trying to get this thing done. I don't have a second person that can do this with me. But I found one idiot that would. So I called one of our guys. I call him an idiot because he's really a dumbass. No, just kidding. But he's got no shoulders. And I call this guy, and he's one of my divers. And I call him, and this guy, I meet him at the City of Orlando Fire Department. So this guy was on one of the second responding units to the Pulse nightclub. And so that happened, Pulse nightclub happened after he came back to work after dying in a car accident. He died in a car accident, was resuscitated, brought back. We didn't know if he was ever come back to work. And we actually had bets if they were going to pull the plug on that. Just kidding. We didn't. We did. Actually, yeah. Lost $100 on him. Anyways, just kidding. But he comes back to work. Pulse nightclub happens. Then he gets diagnosed with cancer. He fights cancer battle. And then he gets me as a partner. And I worked, and you can look at this, for 20 years in the City of Orlando Fire Department on the worst rescues in the city. I spent 16 years on the west side of Orlando, which you wouldn't know where that's it. It's not Disney World. You'll only know there if you're buying crack or you live there. And I spent a lifetime there. They pulled me out of there kicking and screaming. I went from there to the downtown rescue truck with Justin, where we got beat up every day. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you transport it to the hospital 24 times. Every hour of the day, you're on a transport. Imagine being at a place where if you get a house fire, where you're going to go get your butt kicked at, is the greatest day ever because you just spent 4 hours in the rescue truck. But you're going to beat me up that day because you know what? I signed up to do that job. I used to live in my car before I got it. So you'd call me 20 times a day. It didn't matter. If you're a homeless dude, didn't matter. Because you know what? I always work as if my kid's watching me. And I never wanted that kid to meet somebody that told her, your dad was an asshole. So I show up and I'm working with this dude that's burnt out. He is so burnt out that he hates people. And this is where I got Justin. We went on a call where he responded to that call and the guy was septic. And he was trying to talk this guy to go into the hospital. And at that moment in time, man, he goes, hey, man, what do you need? I said, I don't need anything from some dude that's as burnt out as you. Just drive me. And by the time we got to the hospital, I started lines. I started a pressure on this guy, called a sepsis alert. This guy gets rushed right up there, and he goes, dude, you did that in 8 minutes. And that's a true story. And I'm telling him that to brag. He said, you did that in 8 minutes. He goes, how do you do that? I said, bro, I'm not even waste my time on you. You try to talk this guy out of it. See, while he sees a homeless, stinky man with things, I'm watching a guy breathing 30 times per minute from behind me. So that's where I get Justin. And Justin says to me, he goes, hey, I want to learn how to do that. I said, well, if you want to learn how to do this, I got a class in Fort Lauderdale. If you're willing to drive there, I'm not going to charge you. You show up. He showed up there, took that class. A couple months later, he's passed his FBC, and I've never been able to get rid of the dude since. So I called Justin. Justin, you want to go do all this training with me? Somebody's going to come watch us swim. He goes, how far do we got to swim? I don't know. And then the person shows up. We and Justin go swim. Justin is a slow swimmer. And you got 10 minutes to do this 500. We didn't train. He almost died, but he made it. And we both make it at 9:59. It's I'm like, man, we got to get some swimming in. And then we go scuba dive training. He almost got killed by the old man training us. And then we get to this master level trainer, scuba diver person. We become, in that meantime, when me and Justin passed that exam, we become the only non-municipality aquatic rescue response team for the United States Lifesaving Association, which is amazing because I couldn't believe those people gave us that. So we become that team that gives us the opportunity to get an audience with other people. And that's how we start this stuff. So what does that thing look like? It looks like this. It's about 460 hours of training. We've been trying to play with a hybrid format where we basically do a lot of the self-study, a lot of the didactic, a lot of the actual lecture stuff before they actually show up. Because when you show up, there's so many skills, there's so many things that you physically have to do that when these guys show up, we have to do it. I couldn't do this presentation and put this thing up there without showing you that we really did get to a certain point where we got all this stuff done in there. It was hard because we had our friend COVID right as we started all this stuff going down. So I did convince a group of people, and I got a couple of those people in this room. Can you guys just stand up real quick? Show who's here. So there's 3 of them, and there's a handsome fella right there in the back, right there. You know, it's our Dr. Abel. So I received over 46 requests, people that wanted to come, people that were interested in it. And then as they started seeing what the commitment was going to be, that slowly whittled down to about a number of 20 people. And we'll show you some of this stuff. It's pretty cool. So again, we're going to put all this stuff into the rescue company here. Right? So the first thing is I need to find some people that could get through the flight medicine portion of this. So everybody that came to this one class, so Dakota is back there in the room. He used to be a very handsome kid. He is no longer with that mustache. She calls me and he goes, "Hey man, I want to do this search and rescue course." And I said, "Well, you got to go do this air medical course." So he goes, yeah, I want to do that too. And I want to do that. Dakota, tell him about your first day. I always love hearing this, what he says.
First day of class, yes, there's our class, they already know what happened for me. And I'll say, "Oh, yeah, cool, okay." I heard I'm taking the class with, I said, "Okay, what did you just say?" "I don't know, let's pay attention." And the antidote was like, dance mom. I said, "Hey, I just feel dance. I don't know, let's pay attention." And on lunch break, we had one of our folks who said, "Hey, thank you so much for your time. We'll be glad to get out of here." He said, "Just wait till the end of the day."
So we basically took that 40-hour class that the state of Florida says you got to have. And I didn't want a PowerPoint or deaf class. I didn't want anything that would be like that. There's a lot of people in the room that have come through class with us before. We basically take all the skills and all the stuff. We give you 30 days before all the shit you need to know. Hey, you need to know this. And then we usually lecture till about noon. From noon to the rest of the day, we're in class putting your hands on stuff. We're using high fidelity stuff, cadavers. We do everything in class. And we make sure that by the time you leave, every certificate you have that you need to get a flight job, you have when you leave there, as well as your prep for your boards. Currently, if we track our numbers since we became the Rescue Company 1, we've had over 162 people take the flight paramedic exam. I don't even count the critical care people that we've dealt with. So 162 people in the 4 years of existence take the FPC exam. I have 162 FPCs. Now, like 16% to 18% of those pass on their second attempt. That's numbers that I'm proud of. There is people that we work with that can attest for those numbers. So, and we'll give them to you. Dave's outside. He does all my tests for me. So, oops, sorry. Sorry, guys, for going a little bit long. Oops, sorry. So this is what some of the training looks like. We won't play this all the way through, I promise. But this is what some of the stuff that they do. If you don't like the Beastie Boys, you can leave. Just kidding. So we actually, the first day of class, they get a cadaver. And if it's a procedure that's doable and respectful to do, and it's something that you could potentially encounter doing, we're going to do on the cadaver. For real. Escharotomies, traumatic amputations. So this is simulating doing a traumatic amputation on an entrapped extremity. We do eventually open up the chest. We do expand it. We'll ventilate it, expand the lungs with PEEP, without PEEP, so people can actually see this. We'll take the heart out, and then we'll actually trace through the heart and stuff like that. Then that's day one. The next few days, we do break out this helicopter simulator. We actually put you inside of the simulators. Inside of, we can turn into 2 or 3 different helicopters, and you actually work crisis care scenarios in there. You're wearing helmets. You're communicating with each other through that. We do a lot of training to try to take away senses, to try to cement the muscle memory there. We do some rescue training. If you're a nurse that's never cut a car open to get to your patient, we bring a car to you and we cut that thing open and tear it to 100 pieces. And we float. We do a lot of survival stuff. We navigate. We read maps. And then this is kind of the last little bit of the training that they do in that portion right there. Is, again, one of the most important things that we do is this water egress training. The pretty cool thing with this group of guys that went through, we've been able to document all their different steps. Just as they've gone through different classes, we have film of them actually doing it. We have their skill sheets. We have how fast they actually swim certain times, and they did different stuff. We really, as instructors, me and Justin had to like kind of step up our game on our swimming, on our things, because you do get some studs. They come in like Dakota and Andy that are just excellent people in the water. I can assure you that every single one of these things, this is us out here doing it. Where do you get a giant raft? eBay. You know? Where do you get all this stuff? Well, we found it. We find vendors. We actually become good friends with the people we buy stuff from with. You know, Ray's here in the room. We buy stuff from him all the time. So, you know, you just meet people. We let people convince them to let them use their pool. So kind of a little bit of a long video. And then when all that stuff got done, we ended up with a group of about 8 people. We tried to get a group of at least 15 to kind of go at this. So we had several tryouts to try to stack the deck. Because this is the thing. We knew we were going to lose people in this, but we wanted to have enough people to actually spend money on getting towers and different things and stuff like that. Sorry, guys, we're running too late for that stuff. So we did a tryout. And some of the videos you guys already kind of seen. To stack the deck, let's try to have a good group come through. So after these guys come through, now we got about 12 people to do this helicopter in dock. I had like about the 8 people that actually have made it through this stuff. And then we had all these other people that showed up. Now I knew I had like 5 to 6 really good guys to do this. And then Jason, stand up. Jason shows up. Okay. Now, mind you, we've done a tryout, so we know exactly who these guys are going to make it through this thing. And then where's Cop? Stand up, Cop, Rob. These 2 dudes shows up. Now, the guys teaching the class and the doc's here to confirm the fact is we start taking money bets on who's going to make it, who's not. And then nobody took these 2 horses. These were mine. And these 2 horses go through, and I said, that big dude ain't making it, and the little guy ain't either. So y'all can sit down. And these bastards, everybody picked them, and they made me money, $50. So we did the living heck out of these guys. We started out with like a 5-hour pool session. They at the end of this day, by the end of the day, the pool session, whoever we had left, we went over and we rucked We worked, the insurance company to get this insured made me give them like a break in the middle of it because this has never been done before. Like, I have probably one of the most amazing insurance companies. Every time I call to change something, I go, hey, I want to strap a guy, turn him upside down in the water. They go, oh, what you going to do what? And I go, can I do that? And he goes, well, we'll come on and see it. And then they'll insure me for it. But this time, they had one problem. You can't have somebody come to a class and then you throw them out. They were worried about them suing me for that purpose. So for that, I had to give them an hour break. I had to like tell them up front that you could show up here and not make it through this class, all this stuff we had to do. It was pretty crazy. However, a lot of that stuff kind of went away. The second group we did because like the reality was is that we didn't kill anybody the first time, so they're cool letting us do what we wanted to do this go around. But these guys did tread water for, endless amounts of time. They did a bunch of underwater evolutions. Everything they did was to make them comfortable in the water. They're not tying, so on and so forth. We buddy breathe, and we took a lot of the stuff that like the pararescue guys do, a lot of stuff that the Navy guys and Coast Guard guys do, and we put them through it. So I can speed the video up here a little bit to kind of show you some of the other parts. But these guys get beat up here. Here's some of the examples of that stuff here that they're doing. So after this, they come through to do these rescue swimmer classes. Again, that's only part of what we're doing. So they come through, they do a lot of this buddy breathing stuff, just being comfortable, losing air, and still being able to do their job. Losing fins, still being able to do their job. So they take a pretty good beating doing that. We get through those portions of the water classes. Then we go scuba diving. So now some of these guys are great scuba divers, but looking for stuff on the water where you can't see is pretty difficult. So one of the things is I put this picture up there. They're looking for this tiny baby that's weighted down, and we went to one of the lakes, and this is the visibility that they had. This is them actually doing this stuff. Surf patterns underwater, doing all this stuff. Diving with a closed face mask, which is pretty different than the open circuit. They went out and we set ropes on buildings. This is actually the building we work out of. Think about during COVID, nobody will let you use their facility. So we had to figure out how to rappel, how to do different things. So we actually took them out and they went out and rappelled and did different stuff. So this is actually one of the sessions there. It's the back of our building. The College of Emergency Physicians. The ladies that work in there, they were like, what are you guys doing? Well, we're jumping off the roof. So, so this day here, we went out, did some swim training and stuff, some surface water rescue training. This day was about 70 degrees. So pick this day specifically because the water is going to be freaking cold. And these guys went out there. The cold did cut out a couple people from the program. Yes, I got boats and rescue boards and all this stuff, bottom, and we use all the actual equipment you need to be in that stuff. Then we get to the whole point that we're about to put helicopters in the mix. And one of the things that we had conceived that, like, when we go do this deployments off a helicopter and this hoisting stuff, that, we had the concepts and the steps that you have to do, but we really have never done it. We had never done it, and we go, hey, we should probably deploy off a elevated surface and see how this actually goes. Doc talk, and we made it like, hey, you have to deploy off of this. And we go out there and we do this 15-foot deployment, and a lot of the shit you read doesn't really work out as well because people like me and Jason aren't meant to fly gracefully through the air. You see what I'm saying? So like things like putting your hand over your face to protect your mask, you really have to hold that on your face because I hit the water wrong and my hand went like this and my jaw went like that. So as I dislocate my jaw, the doctor had to put it back in. We learned that like you really have to hold your face and kind of do that type of stuff. So here's that example of doing that. So here's that deployment. This is Andy, who's very handsome and graceful. Well, so this is kind of like the culmination of when we actually get to do this job, actually go out there and do it. And we had the pararescue guys out there training with us. And the coolest thing for me that those guys told me was like, hey, these guys, the day we go out there is not a pretty day to do it, but it was the day we had to do it. And these guys were very impressed with how these guys didn't flinch at being in not really nice water, and how they just got off the helicopter. They did their stuff. They held their equipment how they were supposed to. And this guy was doing right here. And then I have to show you them like getting Jason out of the water. They caught themselves a hippo.
It was good you did the 10-10. If you did a 20-20.
Yeah, Doctor did a 2020. So real quick with the whole team thing, and I'll get to a couple of the little last slides because it's really important messages at the end of this I really want everybody to capture. So a lot of times you go like how to be a flight nurse, how to be a flight paramedic, and you see all these YouTube videos and a list of stuff. And the biggest thing is that they don't tell you like how to be a good team member. Does that make sense? You get a lot of people that are good clinically. You get a lot of people that are good at search and rescue stuff, but you get a lot of people that are for themselves. And that person that's there to be self-serving and be the stuff is not somebody that we can associate ourselves with. So the biggest thing, what kind of person do we need? Hell, if you're okay in shape and the doctor says you're okay to be here, we're gonna take you. But if you're a dick, we're not. So we are not looking for somebody that's there just for them. The biggest thing, and we'll get to some of this other stuff here, is that I want to kind of get to you. These are all the different research. And again, everybody can have these slides just because it kind of ran out there. This is kind of how you can find us here. Okay. This is how you can find us. We do have a podcast. Again, we have a booth. We can come over there and grab a card and stuff like that. But what's that? Yeah, we were doing podcasts downstairs too. And we do drink PBR. It's America's beer when we're down there. So if you like some of those, come on down. And the biggest thing I got to tell you is that for the longest, when you do something and you've never done it before as a like, who are you and why are you doing this start? And then you have people that the only reason that we got to this point is we got people that believed in us. And by us, I mean me, Tristan, the doc, and like, people believe that we could do this, and like think, and these two, the doc and Trish, like complete trust that I was going to make this fucking thing happen. And when you get to the day that you actually are a team and you're in those concepts and stuff like that, I'm a homeless guy that got to be here. You know what I'm saying? But the only way you got to be here is because you're a good team member. I'm the CEO of this company and stuff like that, but I'm just like them and a team member just like them, and we try to help each other out in everything we can do. So I just want you to listen to this quick little thing, and we promise you we're gonna get done.
Life's a game of inches. So is football. Because in either game, or football, the margin for error is so small. I mean, one half a step too late or too early, you don't quite make it. 1/2 second too slow, too fast, you don't quite catch it. The inches we need are everywhere around us. They're in every break of the game, every minute, every second. On this team, we fight for that inch. On this team, we tear ourselves and everyone else around us to pieces for that inch. We claw with our fingernails for that inch. Because we know when we add up all those inches, that's going to make the fucking difference between winning and losing. Between living and dying. I'll tell you this, in any fight, it's the guy who's willing to die who's going to win that inch. And I know if I'm going to have any life anymore, it's because I'm still willing to fight and die for that inch. Because that's what living is. The 6 inches in front of your face. Now I can't make you do it. You gotta look at the guy next to you. Look into his eyes. Now I think you're gonna see a guy who will go that inch with you.
So every single person in this picture did like everything I asked them to do. There was a few times that they had questions if like we were really going to make this happen and we were going to be there. And like, you know what? If you ask me, did I doubt that we would ever get there? That's kind of the cool thing about being that homeless guy that got to do the job is that there was never a day that I didn't know that this picture was going to happen. There was never. What if somebody told you could never fail at doing something? And there's only the reason that, hey, you're going to do it. Listen, if this is something you want to be part of, if something you want to do, please call us, come out, can you pay? Sometimes that doesn't really matter. But just like, you know, the biggest thing that I want you to leave with here is if you, hey, this is a dream come true for me. And if you have a dream, go ahead and do it. Make sense? Thank you. Sorry I went so long.